The Bears.
Welcome in, everyone, to Barely Educated. We are here to talk about the Bears through our tears, as all news is bad news is sometimes how I feel about this team. No, I mean, kind of kidding. I think some of it's a little bit questionable, but not really that big of a deal. Anyway, we're going to recap the season. We're going to talk about the coaching search with the world's widest net that doesn't probably have the chance of catching any real fish. And then we're going to talk a little playoff football. Like the Bears, we decided it is a show of solidarity with the Bears. We decided to sit out the wild card round. Only fitting. And we'll talk a little bit about the playoffs. And yeah, Chris, despite the Bears coaching search causing no shortage of almost comical panic, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, got a lot of snow here in Kansas, which is kind of weird. And they apparently we live in the neighborhood they don't plow, so we're like off-roading every time we leave the house. But
is a lot of snow weird? I feel like it's normal. Every time I turn around, the Chiefs are dealing with snow in some way, shape, or form on the national sports news.
Maybe it's the ice that came first that messed everything up, but
that does sound bad.
We got shut down, and like I said, it snowed a week or two ago, and they still haven't plowed our street. So come on.
Well, here in Nashville last Friday, when we would normally have recorded, we had a snow day. Kids were home, so that's one reason why we didn't. And I think we ended up getting like 4 to 5 inches, and the whole place shuts down for a couple days. If we had what you're dealing with, we would be shut down for a week. I mean, people are like, "Do you have enough groceries?" I'm like, yes. Do you guys go to the grocery store every day? Don't you buy like a week's worth? How long do you think this is going to be a problem? It's just
right.
A whole different world down here. And I mean, there's no reason for Nashville to budget the same as Kansas or Chicago on snow plows and salting the roads. So I get it, but it's just always funny to me. Now they're talking about whether it'll be too cold Tuesday for the kids to go to school.
It was going to hit like
cold. Like
hit
10
like 50?
degrees.
Oh,
50.
Wow. That is cold, yeah.
I mean, so that's definitely cold for here. I mean, I've been in the South 17 years, and I always kind of chuckle at the way the school closings work. But I'll say this, they do a better job on the roads getting it cleaned quicker than you might think. But, you know, my wife's work, she teaches second grade, of course, and they have like taking it down a little bit, but like 2 years ago, they had like 14 weather days. And then they don't use them. They just have to keep going to school. And they're basically unpaid for like however many. I'm like, 14?
Yeah.
Where do you think you are? Now it's like 7. And I'm like, use them. Just use them. It might be ridiculous, but you might as well use them.
Yeah.
They're not going to pay you if you don't. So anyway, some weather will affect the playoff games this weekend. Looks like all but the Detroit game have the potential for super cold or snow.
Nice.
So
this is football. Yes.
It's bear weather. No, it's not bear weather. They're never involved.
Just a reminder, anyone listening who likes bear weather died in the 1988 NFC Championship when the 49ers destroyed the Bears at Soldier Field in bear weather. So,
you know who was awfully good at winning in bear weather?
Tom Brady.
Somehow, you can throw the ball, apparently. You know who gets more bear weather than the Bears?
Boston.
Probably Boston. I don't know. It might be close. But
Green Bay.
The point is that the whole thing needs to die. Yep, they're also good at it. Although you got the games like the Giants and Seahawks coming in and beating them. Giants, of course, get plenty of it, too. Anyway, you have a special show shout-out.
I do. I want to give a shout-out. We have a new member in our honor roll. So thank you, Connor, for joining our honor roll, and he had some nice things to say on the Buy Me a Coffee page. Honor roll, Connor. Thank you.
Connor roll.
Wow, nice. Yes. He said, this is just part of it. He said, there are very few things I'm willing to give my time to discuss Bearsness with, and Barely Educated Pod is proudly in my rotation. So thank you, sir, Connor. That's awesome.
Also, that's probably a good policy to minimize the amount of Bears content one consumes.
So, Connor, send me or email us, send your shirt size so we can send you a T-shirt. A Barely Educated T-shirt that you can
There you go.
proudly wear with us and cousin Nate and buddy Brian and former student Tim.
Oh man, all the shout outs.
Yes, done and out of the way. All right, let's get into this.
So at some point we're probably supposed to like be a self-respecting pod and recap the season.
Okay,
So
yeah, that
here's
sounds
my
good.
attempt at that. You started 4-2, then lost 10 in a row, and then beat the Packers. And your rookie QB was kind of all over the place, but there's enough flashes to be excited. And for the first time in franchise history, you fired your coach midseason. It was one heck of a roller coaster.
Wow, when you put it like that, yeah.
10 losses in a row again. Let's keep the GM.
Make it make sense.
Uh, but more seriously, if you want to kind of go bit by bit, at least a couple of the chunks, I did want to mention a couple funny NFL like isms.
Okay.
You start off the season looking dreadful against the Titans, but Will Levis and 29 combined to give you a win you didn't deserve.
Right. Good
Get
point.
basically obliterated by the Texans defense, but stay in the game for a good while, but lose that one, which kind of everyone figured going in. Lose to the Colts, and to me was the first really definitive what is this play caller doing moment.
Mm.
And we were kind of like, oh, maybe it's the rookie, maybe they're just out of sync those first couple games. You had lots of change, but then like that sprint option on fourth down on the goal is like what? Caleb's worst game for turnovers, I believe, was that game.
Mm.
I think it was his only multi-interception game.
Yeah, with 6 on the year, yeah, probably.
Yeah. And so that's one of those you look back, you're like, the Bears should have beat the Colts. I don't care where it was played.
Right.
That Colts team was pretty bad. A lot of dysfunction too by the end of the year. Then you beat the Rams. That's what I mean by the NFLisms. It's like if you ran all this back like right now, wouldn't you kind of expect those games to go the opposite?
Oh yeah, yeah. The Rams
This
have
is
looked
just
great.
something I fully intend to forget when we do the Schedules Out podcast. But you never have any idea because mostly injuries. I mean, you caught the Rams without the receivers and you beat
Yeah,
them.
that matters.
Also,
Yep, for sure.
the young defense has come a long way in the months since. But these things tend to even out. So you go 2-2, you beat the Panthers. That was one of their lowest points. They actually improved quite a bit by the end of the year.
Yes, they did.
Shout out to Bryce Young, a little bit of a
For real.
recovery. We'll see. I hope he plays well now that we have no investment in their failure because I think he has gotten a really rough go of it.
Yeah, yeah. Real quick about that, Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud kind of flipped places in terms of Bryce Young looked more like a first round pick than C.J. Stroud did last.
Yeah,
You
and
know what I
Stroud
mean?
still has
So,
plenty of time. I mean, he still had
oh,
an
sure,
okay
sure,
year,
sure,
but like he
sure.
was historically good as a rookie,
Right,
and he was
right.
basically normal second year.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the rookie year makes the second year almost look worse
Yep.
to a certain degree. It's probably a little bit unfair. So then the Bears go to London and pound Jacksonville. Caleb's worst individual throw of the year is that
Mm-hmm.
interception.
Mm-hmm.
Underthrew DJ Moore by like 30 yards. Um, and at this point, the first major concern for me was really glaring for Caleb. I mean, you could definitely talk about the sacks in the Texans game if you want, but I was kind of like, well, that defense is good and our line sucks. But for me, it was like, man, the deep ball accuracy's bad.
and
This is
it
a big problem moving forward. I'm willing to give it time, but he can't be this bad deep and have a productive career because teams will not respect it. And then the middle of the field and the intermediate routes won't be open. So we've got to fix this right away. He was really bad deep, one of the worst percentages deep in NFL history. And you guys
ooh,
can be mad at me for pointing it out, but the numbers are the numbers. Maybe it's because they were poorly coached and the offense never looked like they knew where they were going altogether. Maybe it's because of stupid stuff that I've never heard of an NFL team being this dumb about, like not pairing the drops with the depths of the throw, like his footwork. That was staggering to hear that they didn't
wow.
actually say, okay, on a 7-step drop, here's the timing and where the ball should go. So like there's reasons that are beyond just Caleb. But at the end of the day, it was very inaccurate deep. And that throw is like a little bit of a sample of that. But I think he can fix it. It's not like guaranteed that he's bad at this. But that throw really made it obvious, and it never really improved.
Well, I didn't
Not
watch him.
much.
I didn't watch him much in college. But I don't remember hearing that deep ball accuracy was an issue. In fact, I thought I heard and read that it was a strength of his.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the off-platform was from the pocket
Okay.
deep. I don't really recall college-wise.
But here's something I do know is that Justin Fields' deep ball got worse with the Bears too.
And he was great at it in
He
college.
was. That was
It was
his thing.
basically in the pocket.
Hmm. So I think there's some Bears coaching that's responsible for at least some of it, only because you can see the same problem in both Fields and Williams.
Yeah,
But to what extent?
The new coach has to fix it. Point
Yes.
1A and 1B is, of course, the sacks. So then they come back, they have the bye, and they go on a 10-game losing streak after 29, and the Commanders conspire with Eberflus to lose in spectacular fashion. And we launch the Commanders into the stratosphere as super team of destiny, who have now won 5 straight games on their last possession. That's just absurd.
Yeah.
Like, what do you do with that?
I mean,
we the Bears have created the team of destiny, everyone.
Would have been nice if it was our own team, but
Yeah, no, well, we're just here to help.
So how's this? That's not really
sustainable. They never recovered from that moment.
No,
you cannot convince me they ever recovered from that moment. I don't want to relitigate the whole 10-game losing streak and all the terrible coaching, but we also got, I think, to mention, you rolled over and died against New England, who stinks.
Yes. At home, right?
That finally gets Waldron fired. And then you had the Eberflus Clusterflus on Thanksgiving, which finally got him fired after he got to meet the media on Zoom, which is chef's kiss, Bears. And then you're competitive in the division for all these games, by the way. That's probably the best news of the season in some senses.
Yeah.
Caleb's really good in the fourth quarter. Some of that people claim is garbage stats, but some of them are legitimate comebacks. Like I think that's mostly unfair. He's got that clutch gene, and then finally he's rewarded with it by beating Green Bay in Green Bay on the final drive.
Beautiful.
Final game. And don't tell me it didn't matter. I mean, yes, let's not make it a Super Bowl. Let's get over this Packers stuff on some level. But I was very happy the Bears beat them. My kid was freaking out.
Yes.
And it sent Green Bay to Philly. Thank you very much. I think the Bears had a hand in the overrated Packers season ending.
Very overrated. And you can say what you want. I know people have said about Caleb, fourth quarter garbage time, but Jordan Love couldn't pull off any fourth quarter garbage time against Philly. You know what I mean? I say that as a joke. I say it mostly as a joke, but at the same time, there is really no consistency in how certain quarterbacks are labeled as clutch because of the fourth quarter and garbage time because it's the fourth quarter. And I admit I'm guilty of that with someone like Dak Prescott. I say, garbage time stats. Or Matt Stafford was jokingly called Stat Padford for a long time. Him. Yeah, now he's great. So I guess I'll take some responsibility in that too. But there's definitely inconsistency across the board in how fourth quarter play is labeled depending on who the quarterback is.
Are we supposed to ignore anything when a team has a 10-point lead? Like how does the math on that idea work? Isn't he supposed to be trying to keep leading a comeback? And don't we all already recognize this on team stats? Like, their rush defense is amazing because they always have leads, and then everybody's got to throw. Like we already get this to some level. So as always, the QB narratives are more or less moronic.
Yeah.
Is Joe Flacco elite? Okay. We can do this. I've been trying to fight the QBs need more nuance in the discussion. Fight for at least 2 decades. So it's right there with college football needs a playoff. I eventually am happy to report that one happened, not because of me, but I mean, plenty of people would agree with this stuff, and sometimes change just takes forever. So I'm hoping we can get to where we're doing it now as the National Football Conglomerate online. Sacks are being looked at online and QBs and scheme, all 3. Interceptions, let's get there with those 2.
Yes.
And I think one of the better stats there is the turnover worthy plays. because sometimes you get away with one too. And
Mm-hmm.
Justin had a bajillion of them,
Mm-hmm.
especially at the fumbling, and Caleb had very few. So
Yes.
if we want to now zoom out a little bit from the results of the season and talk Caleb real quick, the counting stats are pretty good. It's one of the best stats a Bears QB's ever had, which is, you
Tallest
know,
midget.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, pick your metaphor, sure. But the turnover to TD ratio is excellent, and I don't think it's fair to
And
call that garbage time because it's not like the DBs are like, here, throw it. I mean, prevent defense does that, but like there's very little prevent defense in most of those games, and they're not. If it's a bad throw, they're going to jump all over it, even if they have a big lead.
right.
I mean, come on. So
And
that's significant. But the sacks were terrible. He's got to be better there. He needs to be coached, no doubt about it.
right.
And that's why this hire is so important. But he showed you enough to be optimistic. I'm slightly disappointed in how many sacks he took because he was pretty good at getting the ball out. Like, I mean, I know the time to throw is really long in college because he's ad-libbing and making plays, with the mobility and all. But like the tape has plenty of plays in the pocket where it's just out.
Mm.
We didn't get a lot of that with the Bears. We had stretches of it. It was a very uneven season, so I'd say I'm a little disappointed on some of the things, but I'm also encouraged by other things. And I also want to see him calm down at the beginning of the game. Stop telling me you don't get nervous and
Right.
fix this. Well, then
Right.
quit being amped, whatever it is. The first quarter is terrible, and we cannot have that moving forward. So those are my three things he's got to fix: the deep ball accuracy. He did take too many sacks. Enough of them were on him to be a
Yes.
concern.
Yes.
So the line stunk too. Call it 50-50 effectively. And I need him to be as good in the first quarter as he was in the fourth, and we won't have to have him be Superman in the fourth so much.
Yeah. Well
But
said. Well
all
said.
together, coach, coach, coach.
Yeah. And you mentioned his touchdown interception ratio. I think we need to mention that he set the best touchdown to interception ratio for any rookie in NFL history. Like that's huge. It kind of got glossed over, but what is 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions?
I mean, the streak was so large. I'm sitting there going, I kind of want him to be more aggressive. It's okay if he throws one.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so some of that was the coaching too. And ultimately, he looked like a potential franchise QB in plenty of moments. Let's not forget he had the Commanders beat after a really bad game.
Yep.
Came back
Yep.
in that one. That wasn't garbage time. Actually led them on almost 2 touchdown drives at the end there, but they had the handoff to Kramer. Just what are we
And
doing?
drove
This
the
season
Bears down.
is an easy one to be mad at, though, man.
The first
It
Green
is.
Bay game also drove him down for the
Yep.
game-winning attempt. So
And
that
he looked like a rookie, but he also looked like a quarterback whose coach was an absolute moron.
yes,
And the hard knock stuff where he's like kind of looking at him like,
I'm telling you.
"Wow, that was so insightful, coach." Like you could
Mm-hmm.
tell it wasn't. I had hoped it was just because it was like a fake hard knocksy thing, but he, much like I would have been if I were in his shoes, realized right away this guy doesn't know anything about what I do.
Uh-huh.
So I'm begging the Bears, just positively begging them to hire a coach who knows how to work with a quarterback and build a good offense and is proven to be a good play caller.
Hmm.
I don't care about a single coach on the defensive side of the ball now that we're a couple weeks into this process. I don't want any of them. Some I'm more adverse to than others, but for goodness sakes, you got to make a hire that you think, even if you end up wrong, but at least put the logic out there that it's for the quarterback. He's your
Mm-hmm.
only asset that's attractive to a coach, too. It sure ain't the
Probably. Yeah.
owners.
Yeah.
Maybe the tradition and the whole. I mean, I don't know how much these guys really care about that. You hear it a lot. So if we transition to the coaching search, the Bears have cast this hilariously wide net. They're getting dumped on by everybody all over the place for how ridiculous the list of names has grown to 20. And people are mad that they're not bringing them in person. And there's all these narratives out there in the media, and it's driving me crazy. And I actually quit listening for the most part the last couple days because
Probably smart.
I was telling this to cousin Nate,
Cousin Nate.
and
Second
we've been
shout out.
talking about it basically just about every day, right? And it's like it's really embarrassing that he and I basically through Twitter are more informed than some of the score hosts. Guys, they can't do any face-to-face with playoff team coordinators until Monday of this next week, even if they already lost. That is the new rule. The new rule has slowed everything down by a week or two. This is common information readily available all over the internet. I don't know how somebody whose career, not side gig like us,
Right.
or hobby podcasters, how they don't know that or have people in the producers or somewhere who are like, hey, Dan, this is the rule now. Dan Bernstein didn't realize Ian Cunningham was going to get the Bears 2 third-round comp picks if he gets a GM position. I've known that since the second they hired him.
Huh.
And people were like, hey, this guy might be a future GM. I'm like, ooh, comp picks. So that Ryan Poles can do poorly with them because the third-round track record is honestly unspeakably terrible. But guys, we got to know this stuff if we have a platform and a mic. Even I know this, and I don't have anywhere near their platform. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they only interviewed in person Rivera and McCarthy. Yes, because they're not attached to playoff teams, or in Rivera's case, well, actually McCarthy now too, a team at all.
Yeah.
So stop caring about the fact that they're just Zooming. It doesn't matter right now. It matters starting next week. This isn't rocket science. It's driving me crazy. I'm losing my mind even just recapping it for you because it's so dumb. And they're just actively making a dumb fan base even dumber.
Correct. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So, yeah, not as eloquently as you just did, but that's what my thought was as well. It's like, that's just feeding the meatballs and, making them happy to be angry because they want to be right and they want to be angry.
And we're conditioned to not give the Bears benefit of the doubt. I totally
I get
understand that.
Sure.
See my immediate reaction to hiring Eberflus, right? Mm-hmm. We've been doing that for the better part of 3 years at least on this pod, knowing that they're basically incompetent at the top of the organization. But it's important to get this stuff right if you're going to criticize them in a meaningful way. If you're just going to say everything they do is bad and dumb, then you lose the ability to have an insightful critique that they need to hear. If you have that kind of platform, that's why it matters to me that they're more factually oriented. The thing I would criticize the Bears for with the large list is who's in charge and what's his criteria. The fact that you're interviewing everyone under the sun makes it look like you're not sure who's in charge or you aren't sure what your criteria is.
Yes. Yeah.
I would have loved for them to have 7 guys on that Zoom list and they're all offense. Now they might say, well, we don't want to give it away or something because of other teams. Fine. But it's really scattershot. I think that's questionable. And the process and the way they answer questions, they're always terrible at it. We know the press conferences always suck. Like some of this is definitely fair game to criticize. But getting mad about the fact, like Hawes getting mad about who's getting Zoomed and not brought in face, it's like that's not the rule right now.
He's insufferable. He's
awful.
He's awful again.
Yeah. I liked him on Caleb most of the year. I was with him on that stuff, but then he's off the rails again now. So I just have to make sure people listening to me know that this is the way the league is designed this process now, or has designed this process now. The Bears are not doing anything that is going to cost them a candidate just yet. And for the people freaking out about Mike Vrabel, including even my favorite podcast, Hogan Johns, like, well, they could have brought in Vrabel, though. Yes, there was the 1 week window where the Browns let him out where you could have brought him in early. And that's true. However, they did Zoom him, and they're apparently trying to make the process more or less fair, I guess. But the second the Patriots job opened up, that was a done deal. That's so dumb at that point to criticize the Bears.
Yep.
Earlier, maybe a little, but once that job is up, he's going there. That's a wrap. And they did this sham of an interview, one-day interview with 2 African-American candidates to check the Rooney Rule, and even their official Twitter post didn't give them their own post. They lump them together. It was like the most ridiculous mockery of the whole idea.
Yeah, just accept the fact that Vrabel was going to go to the Patriots, and it didn't matter what the Bears did. That was just going to happen, and to be mad at the Bears about that is just silly.
So sometimes I think the Bears do themselves no favors, but sometimes it's just unfair piling on.
Yes.
Now, as for the candidates,
okay,
we have to talk about this, and you're probably not going to like part of it, so it'll be fun to listen to. Okay. I have it. Ben Johnson.
Yep.
Huge gap. Todd Monken,
Mm-hmm.
even though he does not look like a leader of men when he's got the play call sheet in his sweatpants in his interview with the media yesterday. Oh my gosh, what a look. He looked very football-y though. But that guy has had tremendous success calling plays multiple places. Seems to get great results out of really athletic quarterbacks. I mean, he's done wonders for Lamar's passing game in these 2 years. He's a legit candidate. I have him basically tied with Joe Brady in my second tier. Though I have questions about Brady because of, is it Josh Allen and Joe Burrow that he's had to practice? I mean, the work with, or is it his scheme helping them be better, or is it just they're superhuman,
Right.
right? Like that's a little trickier. So I'd put him third. Then I'd have another gap, and I think we're almost out of decent offensive coaches that they've been linked to. They haven't no interest in Liam Cohen. That hasn't been reported anywhere, so I can't do it.
Hmm.
Thomas Brown did not show me enough in game to have any interest. He's not ready. Thank you for your service. Go coordinate somewhere for a year or two, and you'll hopefully get a head gig, which you do deserve somewhere down the road. I think Mike McCarthy might legitimately be fourth after another gap because he's got a good track record. I know the in-game stuff is a problem. I need to get him a really good time management guy. That's why he's a meme. Dak running the draw in the playoff game versus the
Yep.
Niners kind of
Yep.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But 3 consecutive 12-win seasons before half the team got hurt this year, and they still fought tooth and nail this year. He knows quarterbacks, and he's worked with, of course, a legend, and then whatever you think of Dak, but they've played well under him. And probably the biggest reason to put him fourth, which again, I'm calling it a distant fourth.
Sure.
I think you can be really confident he'll put together a good staff, and we never have a good staff. We always hate the position coaches or wonder what they're doing. Maybe hate's too strong. We always have stupid stuff like the quarterback coaches never coached quarterbacks. You know what I mean? I mean, like, what are we doing? How is that even a thing? So, like, the winning percentage is just a hair better than Tomlin. The numbers are actually better than Tomlin and Sean Payton by a nose. I mean, they're remarkably similar.
Hmm.
And everybody goes, well, it was the Rodgers Super Bowl. Okay, but no one does that to Peyton
True.
or Tomlin. They all three had to have a good enough quarterback, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of like, at first I recoiled at the idea, and then when I looked into it more and heard people talking about it more, I was like, he's probably getting a bad rap. But he does dreadfully bad at the end of games, and we're going to have to figure that one out if he's the guy. And don't kid yourself, they are very interested.
It sure seems like it.
But I really prefer Ben Johnson, just to be clear, 100%.
Yeah, you got to talk to him first, right? You gotta at least have.
Well, finish that out. He's got to make his choice.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. Do you buy the Raiders stuff with him? There's no quarterback there, and you're going to be under Tom Brady's
I feel like
watchful eye the whole time.
And everyone's like, "Oh, but the Brady factor." He's a 5% owner who might have some role just because Mark Davis is a goof. I mean, and the owners are no better than the Bears ownership. They might give you more money. I don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
I was breaking this down with Cousin Nate as well. It's like, to me, the Raiders or any of the Ben Johnson stuff is, okay, it's Jaguars, Bears, Raiders, right? No one thinks Saints or Jets.
Mm-hmm.
Jaguars have the owner that'll give you the big pile of money, but you got to work with the very much despised league-wide Trent Baalke.
Mm.
So my point here is every one of these teams is going to have a major perk and a major problem. The Raiders are the only place where you can do the bring your GM along.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have all the same problems the Bears have with owners and weirdness, although maybe that's helped by Brady. I don't really know. And they don't have the quarterback.
Nope.
And they don't really have a path to him this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you sign Darnold, I don't know what the path is for them. The Bears are probably not going to give you the biggest deal. You do have to deal with polls. However, if Cunningham gets hired, maybe you can bring your guy there.
Mm.
Maybe they can do something to kick polls up to VP. I would love to get a succession plan where seemingly decent human being Ryan Poles eventually takes over for con man Kevin. And someone better at drafting and signing free agents runs the football side. Because I think Poles as a leader is pretty good at steadying the ship. But I think he's been basically dreadful with too many personnel moves. But if you
Yeah.
can get somebody sliding in there and kind of have a succession plan, maybe. But the Bears have the QB. So does he
Right.
want the money, Jacksonville, the GM paired with them Raiders, or the QB Bears?
I would think you'd want to have the quarterback, but
I don't know. Money
I don't know.
talks. I'm just hoping
I
Jacksonville hires
guess.
somebody
Yeah.
else. And you could say Jags have the QB. I think that would depend on his view of Lawrence, who's been disappointing considering the hype.
Mm-hmm.
And we know he's connected to Caleb through the QB Collective, which
Mm.
was started by his agent and him and somebody else. And we know he likes Caleb.
Yeah. Well,
But I think for the Bears right now, they're interviewing Monken today, the Zoom. But it looks to me like the Bears are almost already down to a two-horse race pending these last couple Zooms, with it being Johnson and McCarthy, unless Monken and Flores impress today. It doesn't seem like they're that interested in Joe Brady. So
and
I
I
have
don't
it
think
right now
Flores either.
as Johnson and McCarthy for the Bears.
To
which I'll say, hey, they're checking my offense box.
That's right. That's true. That's true. Yeah. I'm more intrigued with Monken. There was I can't remember if I heard it yesterday or the day before, that one of the pros about him that speaks well of him as a candidate is that he looks at the personnel he has and tries to do what's best with the personnel he has. Why is that such a unique, revolutionary thing?
It's hilarious that that's like a like advantage over other people. Yeah, I get
I
you.
was stunned when I heard that. I was like, you mean every offensive coach isn't doing that?
Well, we live it out all the time, so yeah.
I guess we did live it out with.
But of course, the good
Matt
ones
Nagy.
do it.
Yeah.
I mean, Andy Reid does a different thing every year with the Chiefs. It feels like,
Yeah.
oh, we don't have any receivers this year. Okay, we're gonna lean into the run game. Oh, our tackles stink this year. Like he's always got answers. The good ones do. Monken is a great coach. I don't know if he's a head coach, maybe. All right,
Yep.
but he's really good, and he's a little older, but he's done this well all over the place, and so that's why I have him second.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Ben Johnson is the home run swing for the fences guy, and the Bears. I don't care about like people are saying like, well, you should just worry about getting to the playoffs, and Mike McCarthy gets to the playoffs, and it doesn't matter if he doesn't win. This team never even gets there. No, stop with the
That's
loser
so
mentality.
dumb. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I don't want to settle for just making the postseason. I want to try to find the next Sean McVay, who I think is the second best coach in this league right now. What he did with the Rams this year is absurd.
Yes.
Half
Remarkable.
that defense was just drafted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he just destroyed the Vikings.
Yeah, that
if
went.
Todd Johnson is basically that same mold, which is pretty much what everyone says, then it's the right idea, even if it ultimately didn't work out for various reasons in 5 years or something. We sit here going, yep, that was a bummer. Get the logic right and just continue to do that, and you'll get the hire eventually. And I think he's way too good at scheming up the offense to fail outright.
Mm-hmm.
And they're a top 5 offense 3 years.
3 years in a row. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Twice top 3 and once the best.
Yep.
With Jared Goff, guys, Jared Goff was like bust. The Rams had to attach a pick to get the Lions to take him in his contract at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we thought
he's been a Pro Bowler. This guy is great at scheming up the offense, and I'm pretty sure he's smart enough to tailor it to his players too. So he's still overwhelmingly my choice, but I think we better all do some homework on Mike McCarthy and try to do it with a little bit more of an open mind. And I came away more impressed than I expected. I didn't realize he had been that successful because he's such a meme. And I think that's kind of because he's like a fat guy too. Like he needs a better publicist. If he looked the part more like like Tomlin looks like he'll beat you into line if you step out. Like Tomlin's like the standard is the standard, and he's like really good at that whole thing. And Mike McCarthy's like Jolly Saint Nick over there, looking confused every time he has to call a timeout. I get it, but he knows how to manage the building. He's done a pretty good job getting players to fight for him. And listen to what guys like Micah Parsons say. I don't want him. I don't want him over Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to be open-minded, and maybe he'll get Micah Parsons would be interested in the Bears then.
Well, I'll listen to that. Yeah.
Now I've really lost the plot, but
I just can't get past.
He's not as bad a candidate as people think, and including me at first blush. That's all I'm trying to say.
I just cannot get past having prime Aaron Rodgers and squandering that. You know what I
That's
mean?
true.
That's a big thing for me, and the clock management stuff, which is
That's
the
true.
Mimi stuff. But yeah, I guess that could be worse. I
I would be a
guess
little worried that it was a little John Fox-ish,
not as bad.
but not as bad because he still seems to have his fastball to some degree. And the watermelon story is amazing.
I do not know the
Oh,
watermelon story.
he was upset that they didn't strip the ball enough the week before. They didn't go for the ball. They didn't, I don't know, play well enough defensively on that. And he like got the team gathered around. Somebody wheels in a bunch of watermelons, and he's like, "Guys, I got to take ownership for that loss. I did not reinforce how important it was to be, like trying to smash the ball out of there." And he takes a sledgehammer. He just walks around smashing watermelons, getting it all over his pants. By the time he gets to how we're gonna do, it was against the Vikings coming up or something, that they're gonna strip the ball from Dalvin Cook. DeMarcus Lawrence, I think it was, yeah. He gets up, he's like, no, I got this one, coach. Grabs a sledgehammer and smashes the watermelon, and everybody's just like going nuts. And then they won the game. They had two stripped fumbles on Cook, and it's like, when do the Bears ever have anyone who gets any of that kind of, I don't know, motivational tactics? So I'm just saying the Bears typically don't have somebody who is that well loved by the players. Lovey was, and Nagy was kind of fun, especially the first year. But I'm trying to give stories like that and the things players like Micah Parsons are saying a seat at the table, and not just my initial aversion to McCarthy. When I did a little more homework on him, I was like, actually, he's better than any of the defensive candidates. I'll be ticked if they hire him and Ben Johnson's still on the board. But
Yeah,
it would be kind of a safe-ish hire, but it would make more sense than any defensive one.
that I'll agree with, especially with Vrabel gone. And I didn't really want him anyway, but he was the best defensive guy or best
Right.
defensive background coach. So yeah,
Right, like Brian Flores, I want no part of that with
I
how
do
he
not
treated
either.
Tua. Not a
Yeah,
chance.
exactly,
Aaron Glenn
exactly.
seems like he'd probably be really good with the leadership stuff, and I'm impressed at how he held that defense together through 100 injuries. But
Right?
again,
True.
how do I know he knows what to do with the QB and can get a coordinator in here who stays if he's good?
Hmm.
That's why the process matters, and it's so dumb to not hire offense when you have a young QB, because you want that long-term stability.
Hmm.
All right, playoffs.
Playoffs.
Wild card weekend was mostly a dud, except for the, of course, always entertaining Commanders, because that's just what they do. They
Yeah.
play close games.
Yep. Gotta hand it to. But I just don't think that's sustainable. You know.
Oh yeah,
I
it's a crazy run. It's a crazy run.
I think that ends this week. But I guess we'll have
But
to see.
Jaden Daniels has had a great year. He's going to be the rookie of the year. He's
Yeah.
better sooner than I expected. I was worried about him taking too many sacks because that was one of the things on his college tape. He was super productive when he didn't take sacks. And I worried that he plays too recklessly the way he runs around for his really slight frame. He still looks super scrawny out
Yeah, he
there.
does. Yeah.
I'm still concerned about that long term, but he's been pretty good about not taking huge hits. He's always had a great deep ball. He's always been elite as a runner, right? He's got that Lamar
He
Jackson kind of
does.
vibe there.
Hmm.
And so he's good. And he's also benefited from being one of these guys. Him and Bo Nix both played a ton in college. Nix played even more. So maybe it shouldn't have surprised everybody quite so much. And he's very cool under pressure. So kudos to him. I hate the national narrative because it makes me feel like I have to root against him because of the
Yeah.
incessant comps to Caleb all the time.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, I even
But
had
what a
someone.
story that team is.
I had an LSU fan friend text me. So you still glad they took Caleb? Like, okay, I don't want to have this conversation
We're 1 year
for
into what
many
is
reasons.
hopefully
Yeah.
10 to 15 years for both of them.
Yeah.
A dear friend of mine who goes with me to Egypt all the time, um, he's a Commanders fan, and he's so great about it because he'll just be like, hopefully they're both great, and we start having this rivalry play out in the
Yeah.
playoffs, and they're like one of these Bills, Chiefs, Ravens kind of thing where they're just always in the mix, and the QBs are so good that they're going to play each other a bunch, and we can both be thrilled that we're always in the mix. And I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a good way to put it. He's like,
Hmm.
they don't need to compete in the narrative. Let's compete on the field. I was like,
Yeah.
that's a good way to put it. So I'm trying to tune a lot of that out. All that said, it leaves me not sure what I want to happen in the Lions Commanders game.
Hmm.
You know, it's like two things are at war again. There's the Bears fan sick of the national narrative about Caleb and Daniels.
Yeah.
Okay, I want the Commanders to lose. there's the Bears fan that would love to get on with it with the head coach hire. I
Yeah.
want the Lions to lose.
Yeah.
I want the division to lose, whatever else. So like I am very conflicted.
Well, isn't there a better chance that Ben Johnson moves on if the Lions win the Super Bowl?
That's the other point. Is
So, yeah.
I think you could also with his odds, right? Right now Vegas has the Bears as the favorites,
Yes. Yeah.
but they don't have on there returning to Detroit.
Okay. All right.
Which because it's kind of crazy for him to do it a fourth time, but especially a second time when he was the number one candidate. Has anyone ever done that? 2 years in a row, they were
Yeah.
the top candidate. At some point, when are you getting the chance again, and how much extra money are you losing over a coordinator salary? It's hard to
Yeah.
believe, but I do kind of think on some level they're still a threat.
Hmm.
So I can't tell. I think the Lions win because I don't think the Commanders can stop that offense.
Agreed.
And as much as I think it might be the only shootout of the weekend. But so I'll take the Lions there. I don't know what the spread is, but I'm just picking who I think will win. First
Yeah.
game, though, I guess we could do it in order from there. That's the game that matters to Bears fans, so I wanted to start with that one. What are
Okay.
your thoughts on that one?
No, I think the Lions win, and I don't think it'll be a shootout, but
I think the Lions will score a lot. I don't know how much the Commanders will.
yeah, the way the Lions defense has been playing, I see them stopping the Commanders and putting an end to the close games. But maybe that's just what yeah.
That spread is 9.5.
Okay, that's probably a little too big.
I might pick the Commanders if I was going with the spread.
Yeah.
Almost 10 is effectively 10 is kind of crazy.
Yeah, that's a little much. Yeah.
I mean, Jared Goff threw for 4,600 yards and 37 touchdowns.
Oh, jeez. And won't be
Amon-Ra
MVP.
St. Brown had 115 he's not even in the discussion.
Yeah.
Right? Amon-Ra St. Brown had 115 receptions, 1,263 yards, and 12 touchdowns.
Jeez.
Everybody loses their mind over Terry McLaurin, who's so good at the jump balls. He's fun to watch.
Yeah.
He had 82 catches, 300 or 200 less yards, and one more TD. They're not comparable on total body of work. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a remarkable season. It doesn't get enough press.
Yeah.
They're both really good offensively. But the Lions are second in like basically everything on the counting stats. I just think they're not going to no-show on offense. I don't know what their defense has in the tank with all the injuries. I think the only team that can beat them in the NFC is Philly with the line of scrimmage advantage they'd have to some degree on especially offense and just making it ugly and run. So I do think Detroit wins. I don't know if they win by 10. Okay, that's Saturday night, so I wanted to start with the one the Bears fans care the most about. Before that, we get Houston. Of course, if Houston's in the playoffs, the game is Saturday at 3:30.
Why is that?
It's like 8 games in a row or something. At your Kansas City Chiefs.
Hey, now.
Chiefs favored by 8.5.
That sounds about right. I'm not a Houston believer. I think Kansas City wins it pretty easily.
I do think Kansas City's vulnerable based on the regular season, but I've thought that last year as well.
Right.
And it's not going to be Houston that I mean, I'd just be stunned. It would have to be because the Houston edge rushers obliterated the KC tackles, and Stroud looked more like last year. It's just a lot to expect. Plus, Reed with extra time.
Yeah,
it's going to be a classic Chiefs normal regular season looking win. I don't think they'll do anything magical. They won't need to. Sunday, 2 p.m. Rams at Philadelphia. Might be snow. Philly favored by 6.
Yeah, I think because of Philly's O-line and home field, that 6 seems maybe a bit much. Maybe it's a closer game than that, but yeah, I like Philly.
I think this is sort of the hardest game because of the way Hurts looks post-concussion. And I love what the Rams are doing in terms of how they're hitting their stride at the right time and everything else. But I'm going chalk with all these home teams and favorites. This is the upset to watch for, though, I think. But I think Philly still just has too much. Like when push comes to shove, they always manage to get those yards they need in those close situations, whether it's Barkley or the tush push. I think it'll be a really good close game.
Yeah.
Well, I guess both the Sunday games are super difficult to
Yes,
call, obviously.
this next one.
This one's the amazing one.
Yes.
Baltimore at Buffalo. Buffalo getting a point, so the odds makers are picking Baltimore as the favorite here.
Mm-hmm.
Because the home thing is 3 points.
Yep.
I love this matchup. It's going to be cold and possibly snowy, but shouldn't really affect the teams, I don't think, that much unless it's way more snow than when I saw earlier. The battle of the MVP candidates, right? They're the real two.
Yeah.
Burrow's not going to get that much love for it because they didn't make the playoffs. So it's these two are the real MVP battle here. Not that it matters, the vote's not affected by this, but what a fun matchup it'll be. How do you just please whoever wins this game beat the Chiefs? Probably not going to happen either. But is anybody playing better total both sides of the ball football than Baltimore?
I don't know. They look really good both sides. Really
It's
good.
like
I think
I know
Baltimore.
Pittsburgh wasn't as good an opponent. I mean, I think you'd say Denver was playing better than Pittsburgh, even despite the seeding going into the
Mhm.
weekend last week. So they both looked really good. I just think Baltimore is kind of, again, like the Rams. They're peaking at the right time, but they're more
Yeah.
experienced.
Yeah, and I think Baltimore has a better shot at beating Kansas City than Buffalo does. Even though
It's
I'm
really
not.
hard to
Yeah.
get away from Buffalo. Got them in Buffalo last year and couldn't beat them.
Yep. Yep. They just seem to have their number, but yeah, Lamar, man, Lamar's playing lights out. He could win his third? Would it be his third in a row? No, it wouldn't be third in a row.
Third,
It would
it was
just be his
two in a row,
third
but three
MVP.
overall.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really and his passing has gotten much better. Like
And
the
Derrick
knock.
Henry had almost
Oh,
2,000 yards somehow, kind of quietly. Todd Monken, man, he cooked every which way this
mm-hmm.
year with this team.
Yes, he did. He's a good
Lamar,
number two.
4,000 yards passing, like 4,172 specifically, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions.
Unreal numbers
I
there.
said most of the year Allen I thought was the MVP, but by the end of it, it's not though. It's Lamar. Allen had I love Allen, but he had
Yeah,
3,700 yards and 28 TDs, 6 interceptions. Come on, it's not close as a passer.
yeah,
The stats aren't. I mean,
right.
there's 100 reasons for it, but I'm just saying like you have to squint really hard to try not to give Lamar the MVP, and you have to really stretch what the
Yeah,
criteria is. And then of course that's not even counting his rushing. So
yeah. That's the thing.
fantastic matchup.
They run the ball. I mean, they got a 2,000 yard rusher almost.
That's
And
why they have
but
6,000 yards of offense with
yes,
those two players. How do you
exactly,
not want
exactly.
Todd Monken?
Throwing 4,000 yards and still rushing over 2,000. That's amazing. Amazing. Because usually it's we think that it's one or the other. Like if you have a
Right.
4,000 yard passer, you don't have
Okay.
a great running game. Well, guess what?
And can you name an offensive lineman on their team?
No.
I can name Ronnie Stanley, free agent, by the way.
Mm.
Can you name a receiver?
Likely.
Tight end? Okay. The tight ends are both
Oh,
good.
he's a tight end. Shoot.
Zay Flowers.
But he's
I could
hurt.
have named, but he's hurt, right?
Rashad Bateman.
Bateman's still there.
You
These
know.
guys aren't world beaters. Same thing with the Bills, by the way.
Yeah.
But Henry and Jackson is a heck of a duo. And this was the one other thing I wanted to bring up before we get out of here. To put in the back of our brains for later. This was the year of the resurgent running back.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think I know why. Because all the getting lighter and faster on defense to try to stop the previous
Oh.
version of the Chiefs and those sorts of teams has led some teams to zigzag, right? That whole thing. And now you can run if you've got the beef.
True. It's amazing how
I'm not sure running back isn't towards the top of the Bears' needs.
well based on you
They
do
got a
not
heck of
have
a
that
third
guy.
down back, but he
Yeah.
ain't no every down back.
He is not, and Swift is certainly not a every as we.
That's what I mean. He's a
several
great third
times.
down back because he's so lethal
Oh,
in the
I
passing game.
thought you meant Johnson in
Well,
terms
he's
of
good blocking.
short yardage. I was thinking
Yeah,
short
and
yardage.
short
third
yardage.
down
But
guy,
I think you
yeah.
need a bell cow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. You could also just say, well, fix the O-line and see what the running backs look like and figure it out next year.
I think that'll make a difference for sure, but yeah, not a great.
I wouldn't be
running-
opposed to bringing in a better back somewhere.
Mhm.
And this draft is loaded with them, so you might be able to get a really good one middle round.
Okay. All right.
If Ryan Poles isn't doing the third round pick. Let the coach do that one.
Oh boy.
All right. We're back to complaining about the Bears, so all things old are made new.
Full circle. Yep. All right. Well, that's
we
good
didn't
stuff.
pick. Did we both pick the Ravens there? I guess.
Oh, we didn't. Yeah, I'm picking the Ravens. Yeah,
I am begrudgingly picking the Ravens as well.
And I think it's gonna be more than one. You said the spread's one. Buffalo won.
Yeah, it's weird that the home team is not the favorite. That should be kind of telling, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, take us out of here, sir.
All right, thanks everyone for listening to this episode of Barely Educated. We'll check in with you in a week or so, hopefully with some clearer direction on the Bears head coaching decisions. Find us on the socials at Barely_educated. Join our honor roll like Connor did. Thanks again, Connor. buymeacoffee.com/barely_educated and email us at BearlyEducatedPod@gmail.com. Enjoy the football this weekend. This is often the best or second best football weekend of the year, so soak it in. We don't have it much longer. Talk to you next time. Bear down, my friends.
The Bears.
The Bears.
The Bears.
Bears. Bears.
I love the Bears.